Did you know that there's a company that has the power to control the world's banks, pharmaceutical companies, and even governments? In this video, we're going to take a deep dive into BlackRock, the company that controls most US banks, major pharmaceutical companies, and oversees a staggering 10% of all the stocks traded worldwide. This company has its tentacles in almost every aspect of finance. We'll explore how BlackRock has been able to gain such power and what this means for the global economy and politics. By the end of this video, you'll have a better understanding of how BlackRock is shaping the world we live in and why it's important to pay attention to their actions moving forward. Forget about control for a minute and let's talk about money. BlackRock has $10 trillion in assets, half of America's total GDP. BlackRock is the company both the US and Chinese governments beg to save their economies from recessions. No other company comes close to BlackRock regarding influence and power. The company is just 34 years old. So then, how did BlackRock become the most powerful company ever? Stay tuned to learn how BlackRock became the world's most powerful company and how its CEO, Larry Fink, has achieved unimaginable power over the global economy and world leaders. Larry Fink was born into a wealthy Los Angeles family in 1952. He was a man hungry for power. He spent his early years pursuing a political career and even had a BA in political science from UCLA. Soon enough, he realized that politics isn't where the real power is, money is. And with this realization, Larry changed his focus to banking and real estate. While at college, Fink had friends from the super rich and powerful families. He had been a full-time member of the secretive Kappa Beta Phi himself. And right there with him were Michael Bloomberg and the Goldman Sachs chairmen. Fink took full advantage of these connections and started a career in the mortgage bond department at First Boston, a New York-based investment bank. And that was where Larry would make his mark on the financial world. Over his time at First Boston, Fink became one of the highest earning employees. He's said to have generated over $1 billion. But Larry was making all that money for someone other than him. So he began creating a ticking time bomb that only he could defuse with his risky practices. Those risky practices eventually caught up with him and he lost $100 million of the bank's money in months. It was terrible for Larry. All the goodwill and reputation he had gained was gone, and he was banished from First Boston. At that point, his vision of world domination seemed like it would never happen. But power-thirsty Fink wasn't giving up that easily. Instead, he would use the disaster to his advantage. Fink would eventually go on to team up with some of his old connections from Kappa Beta Phi, and in 1988, BlackRock was formed. And in no time at all, Larry was making bank. In just 5 years, BlackRock went from being worth $5 million to over $8 billion. But it wasn't all fun and games. During that time, Larry was caught in a power struggle for who would control BlackRock's future. But eventually, in 1995, he pressured one of the co-founders, Schwartzman, to sell his stake in BlackRock for $250 million. A stake that is now worth well over $12 billion. Larry's path to world domination was clear-cut as soon as he got that stake. He became increasingly powerful over the next decade, but no amount of power was ever enough for him. In 2008, the ticking time bomb Larry created at First Boston exploded into the worst financial crisis since the Great Depression. It was unlike anything anyone had seen, and the whole thing was under Larry's control. His mortgage-backed securities had been the fuse, but because he knew the 2008 crash would happen, he had BlackRock focus on asset management. That move protected them from the crisis, and BlackRock was untouched. The crisis was an opportunity for Larry Fink. With his personal connections with the Treasury Secretary, he got contracts to manage all assets of failing banks, becoming the most powerful man on Wall Street. BlackRock then expanded to offer ETFs, and soon enough they became the biggest player in the market and controlled everything from the biggest banks to the smallest retirement funds. BlackRock also bought stakes in almost every major corporation in the world, but Larry didn't stop there. He knew what power technology would have in the future economy, and so he proceeded to spend a ton of money to build a supercomputer that could analyze what investments will make money, and they called it Aladdin. Aladdin managed over $20 trillion worth of assets, more than the entire US GDP, and BlackRock used its power to control economies and governments further. The US Federal Reserve even hired BlackRock to manage their investments, and Larry Fink got more powerful. He is now a billionaire oligarch that holds unimaginable power over the US economy and the entire world. He controls trends, culture, foreign policy, banks, everything. Even world leaders answer to him. BlackRock today manages assets worth 10% of the global economy. The firm has investments in every industry, including media businesses, banks, oil corporations, and armament makers. And one of the ways BlackRock controls the world so well is through its control of the media. Together with Vanguard, an investment company they also partly own, BlackRock now controls 18% of Fox, 16% of CBS, and 13% of Comcast, who themselves own NBC, MSNBC, CNBC, and Sky, respectively. And they even own 12% of Disney. And it isn't just the media, even big tech. BlackRock is now the most significant institutional investor in Google, Facebook, Twitter, Amazon, and so many more. The list of BlackRock-owned companies is just endless. BlackRock controls more than 90% of the media, which might be why you've never heard of them. Controlling the media is very important in any world domination plan. Nobody knows the consequences of BlackRock owning over $9.5 trillion in assets, so no questions are asked. BlackRock's control isn't just extending through information in the media, but also through the entire world's economic and political data. And this is all done through Aladdin. Aladdin can accurately predict the outcome of every single investment. But where does Aladdin get this information from? The answer might scare you. By now, you know that BlackRock owns the banks, insurance companies, social media giants, and even pension funds. All the data from every one of their investments goes through Aladdin. That device has vast amounts of personal data on everyone who has ever had money processed through those banks. However, BlackRock's use of data to influence decision-making has started to raise concerns about the company's control over governments and its role in lobbying for contracts like the EU's regulation of banks. The company's ownership stakes in major publicly traded companies have also sparked worries about its ability to intervene behind the scenes. You should know that BlackRock's acquisition of so many homes and real estate in this recession has made housing unaffordable. BlackRock has also gotten access to China's mutual fund industry, and with that, they've been aggressively investing in. They even own parts of many Chinese companies, including Hikvision, a company well known for human rights abuses. These are now seen as funding authoritarian regimes and a threat to Western democracy. If you think TikTok harvests data, think again, because TikTok's data harvesting can't be compared with BlackRock's. BlackRock has everybody's bank details, preferences, and social trends. And the scary thing is that as BlackRock's investments in Chinese companies increase, BlackRock's influence on the world will grow, but so will China's. This will no doubt lead to the destruction of Western values. The extent of BlackRock's investment in China remains unknown, but China will surely play a significant role in the company's future. And make no mistake, there will be consequences. In 2018, Larry began encouraging companies under BlackRock to contribute to society using ESG scores or risk losing BlackRock support. But of course, it's pure hypocrisy. BlackRock is the same company that invests in companies known for human rights abuses and so much more. However, BlackRock's promotion of ESG scores seems to work among institutional investors, as most avoid investing in companies that do not meet the right ESG ratings. The ESG rating system has also been criticized for prioritizing a company's political and social facades over ethical practices. But no matter how much criticism the company faces, BlackRock has close ties to the actual decision makers and the government, so its influence will continue to grow. However, in the real sense of things, BlackRock's power is highly problematic. One company alone controls investment boards, dictates politics and society, and controls the media and even governments. Companies like BlackRock only profit from our conflicts, leading to socialism for the rich rather than free market capitalism. BlackRock represents the new era of globalized, ruthless, predatory corporations that can gain even more power. than entire countries. The result is a generic, mindless, vapid, and vicious culture, leading to a world divided into a few corporations that have immense power and citizens that are powerless and joyless. And that's it. Be sure to catch our next video featuring more authentic success stories from the most influential people and top brands.